Seniors, beware. 5 popular medications that trigger rapid dementia. Did you know that nearly 70% of seniors in the US are taking medications that could quietly be affecting their memory without anyone warning them? What if the very pills trusted to ease pain, improve sleep, or calm nerves were quietly clouding your thoughts, making you forget names, lose focus, or even feel like you're not quite yourself anymore? Today on Buddhist Health, we're diving into 5 common medications that may look harmless, but have been linked to rapid cognitive decline in older adults. Backed by research and shared through real-life stories, we'll uncover what these medications do to your brain, how to spot the signs early, and most importantly, what natural, brain-friendly alternatives you can explore today. The 5th medication we reveal is one that nearly everyone has taken, yet very few realize how deeply it may affect their clarity and even their emotional stability. You won't want to miss it. But this isn't just a warning, it's an awakening. Stick with us until the end of the video, where we'll recap essential takeaways and guide you through simple changes you can make to protect your brain, elevate your energy, and stay mentally sharp for the years ahead. Drop this affirmation in the comments to seal your intention today. I choose to protect my mind with clarity, compassion, and conscious care. Your words carry power. Let them anchor you. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Buddhist Health, and share it with someone you love. Let's keep this sacred conversation going and help more people age longer and wiser. Muscle relaxants. Relief today, fog tomorrow. Margaret used to be a dancer. Not professionally, but the kind of woman who would sway to jazz in the kitchen while baking on Sunday afternoons. Lately, though, her shoulders were stiff, her lower back ached in the mornings, and the joy in her movement began to fade. After a quick appointment, her doctor handed her a prescription and said, "This will help you sleep. It'll loosen up the tightness." It did for a while, but then came the mornings when she couldn't remember why she opened the refrigerator, or where she left her reading glasses. Her grandson's name took a few seconds longer to surface. The family called it normal aging. But Margaret felt something wasn't quite right. She's not alone. Millions of older Americans are prescribed muscle relaxants each year: cyclobenzaprine, carisoprodol, methocarbamol. They're marketed as temporary relief for back pain, neck stiffness, and muscle spasms. But in older adults, the effects can linger long after the pain has gone. These medications slow down the central nervous system, calming the electrical chatter between nerves and muscles. But in doing so, they also quiet the parts of the brain responsible for memory, focus, and mental clarity. What makes this especially dangerous for seniors is the way the aging body processes medication. The liver works more slowly. The kidneys take longer to flush things out. What might be a 6-hour effect in a 30-year-old can turn into 18 hours of brain fog in someone over 70. The drug doesn't just leave the system. It lingers, stacking up day after day, slowly dulling the mind. And that dullness doesn't always scream. It whispers. A forgotten appointment, a misplaced word, a moment of confusion in the grocery store. Too often, these signs are brushed off as harmless signs of aging, when they may be early warnings, subtle indicators that the medication meant to bring comfort is quietly stealing clarity. Research has begun to echo these concerns. A long-term study published in JAMA Internal Medicine showed that extended use of medications with potent anticholinergic properties, including many muscle relaxants, was associated with a significantly increased risk of dementia. The connection is real, but it's also invisible to most families until it's too late. So what's the alternative? What if you're like Margaret and simply want to move without wincing? Here's the part that brings hope. Relief doesn't have to come in a pill. When guided by professionals, physical therapy can do more than just stretch tight muscles. It can restore movement from the ground up. A well-structured program retrains the body to heal without clouding the mind. For those who prefer a more holistic route, gentle practices like yoga or Tai Chi can release tension while enhancing balance, posture, and peace of mind. Nutrition plays a role too. Magnesium is a natural muscle relaxant found in foods like spinach, pumpkin seeds, and almonds. When used consistently, anti-inflammatory spices like turmeric and ginger can lower pain levels without the fog. And let's not forget about sleep. Many turn to muscle relaxants to forest, not knowing that improving sleep hygiene, like dimming the lights before bed, reducing screen time, and keeping a regular sleep schedule, can make a difference. This is not to say that all medication is bad. Sometimes, when pain overwhelms, a muscle relaxant may offer the short-term relief needed to get through the night. But the message here is caution. It's awareness. It's the gentle reminder that just because something is prescribed doesn't mean it's harmless, especially when taken long-term. Margaret eventually spoke with her doctor. Together, they created a plan to taper off the medication. She began a morning stretching routine, started seeing a physical therapist twice weekly, and swapped out her nighttime pill for a chamomile tea ritual. It wasn't magic, but week by week, her clarity returned. Her memory felt sharper, and one Sunday morning, she caught herself dancing in the kitchen again. Because relief is good, but relief with presence, that's where healing truly begins. Sedatives and anxiety pills, calm outside, chaos within. Robert never considered himself an anxious man. A retired teacher, proud grandfather, and avid crossword puzzler, he had weathered plenty of life storms without panic. But sleep stopped coming after his wife passed, and the nights grew too quiet. His doctor, with kindness and concern, prescribed a small dose of a benzodiazepine to help him rest. "It's just to take the edge off," she said. And it worked. At first, the nights softened, the anxiety dulled. But weeks later, Robert found himself in the kitchen, staring at a half-made sandwich, unable to remember what he'd gone there for. At his grandson's birthday, he forgot the name of the neighbor he'd known for 15 years. It was subtle but unsettling. Sedatives like benzodiazepines, Xanax, Ativan, Valium, are widely prescribed in America for anxiety, panic attacks, insomnia, and emotional distress. Especially among older adults, they are often seen as gentle allies in the battle for calm. But the calm they offer comes at a price. These drugs slow down brain activity by enhancing the effects of GABA, a neurotransmitter that puts the nerve into rest mode. In moments of high stress, that's precisely what we need. However, the problem arises not in the emergency room, but in the habit. Over time, long-term use of these medications alters the brain's chemistry. The brakes that once quieted a racing mind start to affect the gears responsible for memory, attention, and emotional processing. The body builds tolerance, needing more for the same effect. And with repeated use, the mind becomes less resilient, more dependent. For older adults, the danger is amplified. The metabolism slows, the drug stays in the system longer. Daytime drowsiness becomes an everyday companion. Reflexes dull. The line between therapeutic sedation and cognitive impairment becomes alarmingly thin. Studies have shown that long-term benzodiazepine use is associated with an increased risk of Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, particularly when taken for more than 3 months without reevaluation. But the scariest part? Most people don't realize it's happening. They chalk it up to aging, to grief, to stress. And because the shift is gradual, no one questions the medication until the fog becomes too thick to ignore. Robert thankfully did question it. With his daughter's encouragement, he returned to his doctor and said the 4 words many seniors are afraid to say, "I want something different." That's where hope begins. Today, we know that anxiety, while deeply uncomfortable, is not a life sentence. It is often a message, not a malfunction. And there are paths to peace that do not involve sedation. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is one of the most effective treatments for anxiety and insomnia. It teaches people to notice the thoughts that trigger fear and challenge and reshape and replace them. Unlike medication, CBT strengthens the brain's natural resilience, rather than suppressing its signals. Mindfulness meditation is another powerful tool. Not the kind that requires chanting on a mountaintop, but the simple act of learning to sit, breathe, and observe your mind with curiosity rather than judgment. Multiple studies, including those conducted by Harvard and UCLA, show that mindfulness practices can physically reshape parts of the brain involved in memory, emotional regulation, and attention. The same clarity pills temporarily mimic. Your brain can build with consistency and care. Sleep hygiene also plays a huge role. Creating a nighttime ritual, dim lighting, calming music, gentle stretches, can signal the brain to wind down without needing to flip the chemical switch of a sedative. That's the journey Robert chose. It wasn't easy, Tapering off required patience, professional support, and uncomfortable nights. But over time, something beautiful happened. The fog began to lift. He started remembering names, enjoying conversations, and even sleeping again. Not because of a pill, but because his mind had relearned how to rest on its own. There's a quiet power in knowing you don't have to numb your way through life. Calm is possible, without surrendering clarity. And for those who struggle with anxiety, the message isn't "don't feel," it's "feel wisely." Medication can help in moments of crisis, but peace, real peace, comes from presence. And presence can never be prescribed. Antidepressants. Healing the heart, hurting the head. When Susan lost her husband, everything slowed down. Her mornings became heavy. Coffee didn't taste the same. The news played in the background, but she couldn't remember what she'd just heard. Concerned and unsure how to help, her adult children encouraged her to see a doctor. After a short visit and a few tears, she left the clinic with a small orange bottle and a quiet sense of hope. Antidepressants had helped millions before her, they said. And they weren't wrong. Medications like SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and tricyclic antidepressants have changed lives. For people struggling with major depressive disorder, anxiety, or even insomnia, they can provide a crucial chemical bridge across a dark chapter. They lift the weight just enough so therapy, relationships, and daily living become manageable again. But that bridge, if never revisited, can become a trap. For many older adults, antidepressants are prescribed and then quietly refilled month after month, year after year. The dosage stays the same, the check-ins become fewer, and somewhere along the way, subtle changes start to surface. Diminished focus, slower processing speed, moments of mental static that weren't there before. Susan noticed this shift one morning as she stood in the produce aisle, staring blankly at a head of lettuce. She couldn't remember if she liked it, or why she came to the store. Once sharp and witty, her thoughts now came with hesitation, like walking through mud. She wasn't sad anymore, but she wasn't fully there either. This is the double-edged sword of antidepressant use in aging brains. While these medications can be life-saving, especially in the short-term, long-term use, particularly without regular evaluation, can affect cognitive clarity. Older adults metabolize drugs more slowly. The brain, already adapting to the natural aging process, becomes more sensitive to chemical shifts. What was once therapeutic can quietly become impairing. And here's the nuance that matters. This isn't a call to stop medication, far from it. Depression is real. It's complex, and it deserves treatment. However, effective treatment means more than just continuing the same script forever. It means ongoing dialogue, routine check-ins, and the willingness to ask, is this still working for me? Is the dosage correct? Is there something else I can add to support my healing? In Susan's case, that something else was therapy. She began seeing a psychologist who specialized in working with older adults. Together, they unpacked not just the grief but the loneliness, the guilt, the identity shifts that often come with aging. They explored old memories and new goals. Slowly, Susan began to reclaim not just her mood but also her mind. That's the part too often missed in traditional care. Mental health is not just chemical. It's relational, it's spiritual, it's environmental. Antidepressants can lift the fog, but therapy helps you see the road ahead. Together, they can create a powerful path forward. But without one, the other may only do half the job. And there's more. Gentle lifestyle interventions, like walking outdoors, engaging in group activities, journaling, or joining support circles, can enhance the effects of both therapy and medication. These aren't side projects. They're core components of long-term mental clarity. Susan eventually adjusted her medication under supervision. She found a balance with her therapist's help and her family's support. She laughed again, remembered birthdays, played chess with her grandson without forgetting whose turn it was. Not because she toughed it out, but because she asked the right questions and found a team that listened. The heart and the mind are more connected than we realize. When one breaks, the other bruises. And when we choose healing, both deserve attention, patience, and care. Antidepressants can help us breathe again. But let's make sure we're still thinking clearly while we do. Painkillers, numbing pain, silencing clarity. Frank was once the guy who fixed everything. A retired mechanic from Ohio, he took pride in working with his hands, adjusting engines, replacing brakes, teaching his grandson how to check tire pressure. But over time, the joints in his hands stiffened, and his lower back, strained from decades under hoods, refused to cooperate. His doctor prescribed an ordinary painkiller. "It'll help you stay active," she said. At first, it did. The aches eased. The mornings weren't as harsh. Frank was grateful. But after a few months, something else began to shift. Something he couldn't explain away as just getting older. He struggled to maintain balance while walking downstairs. Conversations at the dinner table became muffled, and he asked people to repeat themselves more often. His reaction time slowed, and one day, while driving to the store, he nearly ran a red light because his brain hesitated for a second too long. Painkillers are among the most widely used medications for older adults. From over-the-counter NSAIDs like ibuprofen to prescription opioids like oxycodone, they provide much-needed relief for chronic pain. But what many don't realize is that these medications don't just dull pain, they can also dull awareness. Some painkillers work by altering how the brain interprets pain signals, targeting the central nervous system. However, in doing so, they can interfere with other neurological functions, mainly when used daily or in combination with other medications. This impact is even more pronounced for seniors, whose bodies metabolize drugs more slowly. And it's not just about brain fog. Certain pain medications, especially when used long-term, have been linked to hearing loss, a side effect that's often overlooked but deeply consequential. Hearing isn't just about sound, it's about connection. When hearing fades, so does participation. Seniors withdraw from conversations, from community, from joy, and that isolation can quickly spiral into depression and cognitive decline. Frank's story isn't rare. Researchers have found a strong correlation between hearing loss and increased dementia risk. The explanation is layered. Less auditory stimulation weakens brain activity, social withdrawal reduces mental engagement, and the strain of trying to hear consumes mental energy that should be used for memory and reasoning. It's not the occasional use of painkillers that raises concern, it's the habitual reliance without reevaluation. Many seniors begin taking these medications after surgery, injury, or a flare-up of arthritis, and simply continue without pause. Over time, what started as a helpful solution becomes a quiet contributor to cognitive and sensory decline. But there are other paths that offer relief without robbing clarity. Frank's turning point came during a routine visit with a new physician who noticed signs of hearing loss and balance issues. Instead of increasing the dose, she suggested a shift in strategy. He began physical therapy focused on joint mobility. He tried therapeutic massage and acupuncture for inflammation. He discovered that simple, daily stretching, omega-3 supplements, and turmeric reduced his need for pills by half. And perhaps most importantly, he began tracking his pain, learning which activities triggered flare-ups and which ones brought ease. He realized awareness was a more powerful tool than he'd expected. Pain is real, and so is the need to stay functional and independent. But the question we must ask is how we manage pain also protecting our future? Because what good is a pain-free body if the mind becomes foggy, disconnected, or disengaged? What good is mobility if we can't hear our grandkids laughing at the dinner table? Healing means more than numbing. It means finding a balance between comfort and consciousness, and that begins not just with asking what takes the pain away, but with daring to ask, what helps me stay truly alive? Antibiotics, fighting bacteria, disrupting the brain. Linda had always taken pride in her health rituals. She started her day with a brisk walk, a healthy breakfast, and a cup of herbal tea each morning. But when a stubborn chest infection forced her to take antibiotics for several days in a row, she noticed that something was off. Not only did the infection eventually clear up, but in the weeks that followed, Linda began feeling like she was lost in a constant mental fog. Conversations seemed distant, and the sharp clarity she once enjoyed was replaced by a kind of haziness, a murky feeling that made it hard to focus or decide what to have for lunch. Antibiotics are powerful tools designed to fight harmful bacteria and save lives, and they do just that. They have transformed modern medicine by reducing infections that once claimed countless lives. However, for many older adults like Linda, The consequences of antibiotic use can extend far beyond just clearing an infection. What often goes unspoken is the collateral damage these medications can inflict on the delicate balance of the gut microbiome. The human gut is home to trillions of beneficial bacteria, tiny organisms that play a crucial role in digestion, immunity, and brain function. When antibiotics wipe out harmful bacteria, they can inadvertently decimate this beneficial community. This imbalance, known as dysbiosis, can lead to unintended effects. In Linda's case, it manifested as a persistent brain fog, a state of sullen cognitive sluggishness accompanied by difficulty concentrating and subtle mood swings. Imagine the gut as an intricate ecosystem, teeming with life that communicates with your brain through chemical signals. When that ecosystem is disrupted, it's like trying to read a book with missing pages. The story of your cognitive clarity becomes fragmented. Studies have increasingly shown that the health of our gut microbiome is intertwined with our overall cognitive function. A disturbed balance can lead to inflammation, which in turn has been linked to changes in mental state and even a higher risk of neurodegenerative conditions. For many seniors, these issues aren't immediately recognized as side effects of a necessary treatment. Instead, the symptoms of dysbiosis, mild confusion, difficulty focusing, and emotional instability might be attributed simply to aging or stress. But Linda's experience was a wake-up call. When her routine checkup revealed no obvious neurological issues, she began questioning the lingering effects of her recent antibiotic course. The solution, it turns out, lies not in avoiding antibiotics altogether. They remain an essential tool in our medical arsenal, but in mitigating their unintended effects on the gut. One promising approach is the concomitant use of probiotics. Probiotics, which are supplements containing live beneficial bacteria, can help restore the balance of the gut ecosystem during and after an antibiotic treatment. Additionally, incorporating fermented foods into the diet, such as yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi, can further support the replenishment of good bacteria naturally. Linda's doctor recommended that following her antibiotic regimen, she start a course of probiotics and gradually integrate naturally fermented foods back into her diet. Over time, Linda noticed a subtle but significant improvement. The persistent brain fog began to lift, her focus sharpened, and the emotional roller coaster moderated to a calm steadiness. While these dietary adjustments didn't reverse everything overnight, they provided a natural bridge toward regaining balance in her overall well-being. The story of Linda underscores an essential lesson for all seniors. While antibiotics are critical for fighting bacterial infections, their use must be accompanied by thoughtful measures to protect the gut microbiome and, by extension, cognitive health. It's a reminder that healing is a holistic process, where every action affects multiple systems within the body. Taking proactive steps like supplementing with probiotics and embracing a diet rich in fermented foods can safeguard against antibiotics' unintended cognitive side effects. Ultimately, the journey to sustained cognitive clarity involves understanding and nurturing the intricate connection between our gut and brain. This awareness empowers us to seek balance, ensuring that we battle infections effectively and maintain the precious harmony that fuels our mind's vibrant activity. You are not trapped, you have options. There was a morning I'll never forget. I was standing in my garage staring at the open car door, and I couldn't remember why I'd gone in there. The keys were in my hand, but I didn't know where I was headed. I laughed it off. Senior moment, I said aloud, trying to make the silence feel lighter. But something didn't sit right. This wasn't the first time. A week before, I'd forgotten the name of a neighbor I've known for 20 years. The same afternoon, I spent 2 minutes trying to remember a common word: umbrella. At first, I blamed it on stress, then at age, then on the weather. We're good at rationalizing, especially when the truth feels too close. But the fear crept in anyway. Was this how it starts? I wasn't ready for that answer, so I got curious and did what I've always done when I'm afraid. I started reading, I dug into studies, I called a few health professionals I trusted. I began to ask questions I'd been too hesitant to voice before. Could something I'm taking make this worse? Is this decline inevitable, or is there still time to shift the tide? That's when things began to change. What I learned didn't come with panic. It came with clarity and an invitation. Memory loss, while familiar with age, isn't always a one-way street. It's not always destiny. Sometimes it's a signal, a sign that something inside needs care, attention, and nourishment. And that nourishment doesn't always come from another pill. I started by looking at my diet. I had always eaten reasonably well, but now I became intentional. I added blueberries to my morning oats, swapped out sugary snacks for walnuts and avocado, and introduced fatty fish like salmon several times a week. I wasn't chasing a miracle, I was building a rhythm, something sustainable, something kind. Next, I turned to meditation. Not the sit on a mountain, hum until enlightened version. Just a few minutes each morning of quiet. Breathing in, breathing out. Noticing my thoughts without judgment. Sometimes it was peaceful, sometimes it was frustrating, but every day it was mine. And over time, the static in my mind began to soften. I also started moving again. Gentle yoga, evening walks, and light strength training with a neighbor. At first it felt awkward, but movement, like memory, is something the body remembers when given the chance. Most importantly, I began having honest conversations with my doctor. Not about stopping everything cold, but about what could be reviewed, reduced, or replaced. We looked at each medication together. We talked through options. For the first time in a long time, I felt like an active participant in my health, not just a patient receiving instructions. And here's the truth I wish someone had whispered to me earlier. You are not trapped. You are not stuck. There are always options. You may not control every part of aging, but you can shape how you respond to it. You can choose foods that fuel your brain. You can choose practices that calm your nervous system. You can ask questions, speak up, and advocate for your clarity. We're taught to accept decline as a package deal with age, but the reality is much more nuanced. Some of what we experience is the body's natural evolution. But some of it, the fog, the forgetfulness, the disconnection, may be side effects, imbalances, or habits that can be adjusted. Not reversed overnight, not cured with a single answer, but gently shifted with intention. So if you felt it too, the gaps, the fog, the uncertainty, know this: you are not alone. And more importantly, you are not powerless. Your mind is still yours, and you still have the chance right now to care for it with wisdom. Nature's wisdom, the brain's true allies. There's a quiet intelligence in nature, an ancient rhythm that knows how to heal, restore, and bring balance where the body has lost its way. And as I began to reconnect with my clarity, I became more drawn to that wisdom. Not in opposition to medicine, but as a companion to it. Because sometimes healing doesn't come in a bottle. Sometimes it begins on earth. 1. Ginseng, vitality without agitation. The first ally I discovered was ginseng, a root used for centuries in Eastern traditions and now increasingly validated by Western research. Unlike caffeine, which jolts the system, ginseng has a different approach. It invigorates without overstimulating. It sharpens the mind without creating the tremble of nervous energy. Studies have shown that ginseng can enhance cerebral blood flow, supporting mental clarity and memory recall, especially in older adults. It's like flipping on a light in a dim room. Suddenly, everything becomes easier to navigate. What I noticed most was the way my mental fatigue lifted. That heavy fog I once pushed through to read a book or finish a conversation, it started to thin. I felt present again, without needing another coffee or a nap. And the beauty of ginseng is not just in its energy, but in its calm steadiness. It asks nothing loud of the body but gives just enough for it to rise again. 2. Green tea, the mindful brew. Next came green tea. I had always liked the taste, but I began to appreciate it as more than a drink. It became a ritual. A signal to slow down, to sit, to be. Green tea is rich in antioxidants, especially EGCG, a compound that reduces inflammation and oxidative stress, two of the leading culprits in cognitive decline. But what I found even more fascinating was its impact on hearing health. Yes, hearing. Green tea helps protect the delicate cells of the inner ear, which can deteriorate with age and medication use. In protecting both brain and ear, it quietly guards two of our most excellent tools for connection. But what I love most is the way it feels. There's something inherently mindful in holding a warm cup, something grounding. Green tea doesn't just heal biochemistry, it invites stillness. And in that stillness, memory finds room to settle. 3. Grapeseed extract, the brain's guardian. Then I met grapeseed extract. Not literally, of course, but through a study I stumbled upon about its ability to protect neurons from oxidative damage. It's like armor for the brain. Grapeseed extract contains proanthocyanidins, potent plant compounds that support vascular health and reduce the breakdown of nerve connections. In simpler terms, it helps your brain's messages move more clearly and consistently. It supports the integrity of what's already there, while shielding against further erosion. After a few weeks of supplementation, I noticed my words returning faster. My ability to focus during conversations felt sharper. The pauses that used to sneak into my sentences started to fade. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. And in the backdrop of all this was the reassuring sense that my brain, this organ that carries every memory, loved one's voice, and idea I've ever cherished, was being cared for more deeply. 4. Eggs, avocados, and blueberries. Superfoods for superminds. And then came the foods I already knew but had never truly honored. Eggs, avocados, blueberries. 3 simple ingredients have become staples in my morning routine, not because they're trendy, but because they're beneficial. Eggs are one of the best natural sources of choline, a nutrient essential for building acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter tied to memory and focus. For years I had no idea that something so familiar, something I'd eaten 1,000 times, could be doing so much good behind the scenes. Avocados bring the healthy fats our brains need to stay fluid and resilient. The brain is, after all, nearly 60% fat by composition. Without a steady supply of quality fats, our mental sharpness can suffer. I started slicing avocado onto toast instead of butter, and it became my small act of daily prevention. And blueberries? Those tiny orbs contain antioxidants that fight oxidative stress, a root cause of brain aging. But beyond their science, they taste like summer, like childhood, like joy. And maybe that's healing too. What I've learned through all this is that nature doesn't shout, it whispers, it offers, it provides quiet support when we choose to listen. These foods and herbs don't promise miracles, but they do offer momentum. They build the foundation on which clarity can stand. And every time I steep a cup of tea or slice into an avocado, I remind myself, healing doesn't always look like a prescription. Sometimes, it seems like presence, like patience, like reaching for something alive and remembering that you are too. As we come to the end of today's journey, let's take a moment to pause and reflect. We've explored 5 medications: muscle relaxants, sedatives, antidepressants, painkillers, and antibiotics, that, while often prescribed with good intentions, may carry hidden risks for the aging brain. We've seen how they can quietly affect memory, mood, and clarity over time. But we've also uncovered powerful natural allies, like ginseng, green tea, grapeseed extract, and brain-nourishing foods, that support cognitive health without compromise. Most importantly, we've been reminded that we are not powerless. You are not trapped. There are always options. And every choice you make, what you eat, how you breathe, what you ask your doctor, can become an act of healing. Before you go, I invite you to drop this affirmation in the comments to seal the energy of today's message. I care for my mind with awareness, gratitude, and intention. Let it be a small offering to yourself, an anchor for your journey ahead. And if this video brought you insight, comfort, or clarity, please take a moment to like it, subscribe to Buddhist Health, and share it with someone you care about. Together, we can create a ripple of awareness and wellness beyond this screen. Because aging doesn't have to mean decline. It can mean deepening. It can mean clarity. It can mean becoming more fully yourself, moment by moment. Thank you for being here, and until next time, may you walk gently, breathe deeply, and live with an open heart.